The digital art era is here. AI and art creation tools empower anyone to make it. Blockchain technologies allow anyone to own it. VR, AR, and extended reality immerse us in it. Let's talk to artists and innovators behind the visual magic. I'm your host, Roger Dickerman. Welcome to the future of art. Today, we welcome Mariana Makwaia. Mari is an artist blending photos, videos, analog, and digital music to create an alternative fusion world of her own. She is someone who values individual sovereignty, optionality, and the fundamental value propositions of the blockchain. In this wide-ranging conversation, we'll explore anything from her recent audiovisual series to her sister act Sybling. But what I'll remember most are her vision and her voice. Mari is exploring the gray areas, and she's opening doors for herself and others. Let's get to it. Mariana Makwaia, welcome to the future of art.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
It's such a fun story. I told you this just off air. Now, to set the stage for everyone who's listening, Patrick Amadon is a mutual friend and a fantastic artist in his own right. He was episode 2 of The Future of Art. And from time to time, Patrick and I will touch base. And in this particular case, he said, hey, someone that I think you should talk to is Mari. And I said, that sounds fantastic. And I thought that I had never, well, technically had never met you before or spoken to you before. But it turns out that I was actually familiar with a very specific work of your art. And I want to talk about, maybe that's a great place to lead off, to get your side of that story and what I told you that piece of art is.
I love that. It's kind of a proof to me that Web3 is always smaller than people think, and we overlap in a myriad of ways. This piece that you're referring to is called When She's Gone, and it's currently actually in exhibition in Seoul at Uncommon Gallery. And it is an audio-visual piece that ties together film analog with digital music production and some AI components with the music production as well. And so me and my collaborator, Jay Shim, thought it would be really interesting to kind of come up with this hybrid audiovisual piece with all the tools that we have on hand right now as artists. It was so fun. So we put together this film, digital, AI, analog piece and made it audiovisual, and then ultimately kind of broke it up into 8 components that can loop, each one about 11 seconds, and then minted it on Super Air and sold it out pretty quick, which is super cute. And yeah, Patrick retweeted, a couple of friends retweeted, and I think I definitely got some more followers that had, that was their first time basically experiencing my work. And so other than scoring that piece myself, I was also the subject in it as an actress. And so people got to see me as well as hear my music, which was really fun.
It stood out. I remember at the time, the social post that was shared, watching it a couple times through the loop. I think, the confluence of different mediums that you mentioned all coming together, it definitely resonated and it came through. And I think it's so fun to be sitting here with you now, having this dialogue, now knowing that history and having connected those dots.
It's so sweet.
So Mari, the tough question, how do you define art?
I love philosophical questions like this, and I feel like every time I'm asked, I just come up with a new answer in the moment, because I be spontaneous like that. Right now, I feel like art is a way to breathe through the human condition. Like, we have this kind of funny little dissonance where we're aware of our impending mortality, but we also have this ambition, this dream to reach for something transcendent. And I feel like art in all of its mediums is a way that we breathe through that process, whether it's visual art, music, which is my favorite, although I like fusion and hybrid things. And there's even, I feel like people even make practices that can be a type of art, like meditation can be a practice. And I think that would be similar as well.
The phrase that just came to mind, it kind of blew my mind hearing you talk about it, like the gray area between mortality and transcendence.
Right? Yes, and I love gray area. I'm always interested in liminal spaces, both like in visual and musical representation, but also just conceptually. Like I think it all started because I'm mixed race, and so being like being kind of perceived or not perceived in this liminal space from a really young age. I've always looked for what exists between the black and the white, right? Between 0 and 1, like what exists in between that? What are we missing in our perception? And that's brought me into this love of fusion and hybrid mediums and collaboration and everything in between and beyond.
I guess that's how it always works to some extent, but it's amazing to just hear you refer to that and you approaching it from this exploratory standpoint. You know, like this is the case, like I'm feeling something here. Let me go further and let me treat it. I don't know, just hearing you talk, and also I know this is just a podcast and audio, but we do have video on. You light up when you talk about it. So being able to treat it from that magical exploratory standpoint is really interesting.
Yeah. And even kind of bringing it back to what I feel art is about, like the human condition. Some people and some religions even call life suffering, right? There is a very dissonant kind of tragic component to it. So I feel like we need some medium, we need something larger than that to kind of balance the human condition. I think that's really what art is, art and connection. And I feel the two have a lot to do with each other.
Now, what initially causes you to bring your art over to the blockchain, as it were, and interact with, you know, collectors at that level?
Yes, well, I guess my blockchain story first started a little bit before COVID, when I was dealing with a lot of venues in New York City and feeling like the culture of that with independent artists just seemed a little toxic to me. Let alone the larger music industry and Spotify and labels and who's in bed with whom and et cetera, and how they cut deals and just the role of independent artists. And so I started by teaching myself production on Ableton, kind of saying, okay, at least I have a little bit more sovereignty with being able to produce for myself, not always having to rely on bandmates and who's available when and et cetera. Then during COVID, all the venues shut down. And I was like, what are we supposed to be doing now? Even the venue structure system was being disrupted. And then I heard about Web3 and blockchain through Latasha and Segnon, some of my music artist friends. And so I just kind of started exploring. And what seemed interesting to me is this promise of blockchain being able to cut out the middleman and kind of allow for these relationships directly between the individual artist or the musician and the collector. And I've just seen so many, especially independent musicians, trying to make a living in Web2 and just being crushed, like having to give up certain amounts of freedom or sovereignty or just settle for pennies and like 5 other jobs at the same time. And yeah, so I think honestly, it was this search for individual and artistic sovereignty that brought me to the blockchain. And what's kept me here is just meeting all these like-minded, curious, ambitious people, artists, entrepreneurs, developers, just brilliant, curious people that are trying to figure things out. And I feel like there's definitely this possibility to shift culture. Um, yeah.
What was the moment it clicked for you when you were out there and you had your philosophical beliefs and you were out there searching and COVID was a thing? When did you actually find it and think to yourself, oh, this is an interesting path, I'm now going to dive in?
That was at the very end of 2020. And that was through Latasha and Sagnon again. And at the beginning of 2021, I just showed up. That was back in the Clubhouse days.
Oh yeah.
So I would just hop on spaces, kind of hear what people were about, what they were exploring. That was definitely still in terms of NFTs side of things and like artists really being part of the blockchain in a larger way. That still felt pretty early in terms of people just experimenting, exploring, kind of seeing what was possible. And I loved that. I'm such a curious person that I love when everyone is just experimenting in their own different ways. We have my favorite thing is optionality and freedom of choice. So here we are, just all exploring different things that anyone could conceive of being possible with the technology. And then all these cultural shifts start happening. I ended up meeting a bunch of people that were doing blockchain work through Zoratopia IRL over the course of 2021, 2022, and beyond. And from there, just kind of kept being supportive, observing what was happening, and slowly kind of came to find my own vision within what everyone else was doing and feel like, okay, well, I think I know why I'm here now. My curiosity and search for artistic sovereignty brought me here. I'm seeing kind of cultural ripples wave in a couple different directions and feel like, okay, well, I definitely want to steer in this direction to try and make sure that musicians are still finding some place of sovereignty in blockchain to at least a similar equal amount as visual artists have successfully figured it out. So that's kind of my new goal moving forward for the rest of 2023 and 2024 and beyond is really make blockchain this promise of what Web3 could deliver that Web2 really failed on for independent musicians.
What are the most promising signs that you see right now that there's a bright future ahead for musicians in Web3?
I mean, I feel like in its core tenets, blockchain is about privacy, it's about decentralization, it's about transparency, and in my opinion, it is about sovereignty. This ability to kind of form your own opinions and then make your own actions based off of your own intentions. Like you don't have to follow anyone else's belief system or follow their rules really. And so because I still think we're vaguely early, obviously people kind of adopt certain patterns that they see work, and some of that is helpful or healthy, and some of it I think might be unhealthy, at least for what I'm fighting for, like for individual artists. But I think that's kind of fine as long as we're all still experimenting because of these core tenets. Like if we can continue to be generally decentralized, that means that there are multiple platforms and ways that artists can connect with each other, connect with their collectors, have their work be shown, etc. And then have this connection with collectors that is something deeper than just kind of fans on Instagram or fans who listened once on Spotify but only really found you through a playlist, et cetera, et cetera. Larger labels that kind of think about artists more as numbers or a collection of numbers compared to their other collection of numbers versus these individuals that become, you kind of go from fans to stans, as it were. Like we have these deeper relationships we can build that feel more important than just having a million people that can stream your song once and not know who you are, but have like 1,000 diehard fans who will be with you from the beginning and then just be invested in that journey, right, of success. That seems like the most promising part of blockchain to me, like the cultural implications of the technology.
It makes the 1,000 true fans philosophy a lot more realistic,
Right?
a lot more achievable. And also I like fans to stands. I think that's a great phrase.
Right? It came out in a freestyle once and I was like, no, that's real though.
That's you gotta keep that one around. You gotta keep that one around. So let's say you're speaking to an artist who isn't as familiar with Web3, blockchain, and let's say they're listening to you right now. And you're making I think you just made a beautiful case as to some of the positives to what's going on here. Where should that person start? Where would you guide someone today to begin their exploration? If you put your, you began yours in late 2020, early 2021, which I agree overall, that's still pretty early as it were. Where should that person begin today?
I guess I would ask them two things to try and kind of curate this experience for them. The first being, what are they interested in seeing, hearing, for lack of a better word, consuming? Like, are you looking for visual arts? Are you looking for dance, photography? Are you looking for coding implications, AI, music, audiovisual, et cetera, et cetera? Because I think it's a huge world, like all the possible mediums exist. And whatever you're most curious about and interested in, I would kind of point you in different directions. And woven into that would be, what would you want to bring to the table? Are you an artist as well who's looking to, create a fan base of your own, grow some collectors, meet with other artists in your field? Um, Depending on what your medium is, do you want to get into galleries? Are you trying to collab with producers, et cetera, et cetera? Um, because as varied as all our mediums are in Web 2 and IRL, the same exists on blockchain. So I would kind of ask them that first, and then point them into the directions of people that I think are really paving the way in those respective fields, whether it's developers, visual artists, you know, kind of even people that are just thinking about the culture of the space, because that's something that people don't talk about as much as a really important medium. And then music, of course, my favorite, or audiovisual even. Um, and then, yeah, obviously the majority of relationship building right now still kind of starts on Twitter. My hope is that it won't be like that for too much longer, just because, again, I think that innovation is squashed when we have a little bit of a monopoly on platforms or anything like that. But for now, I would say reach out to your inspirations over Twitter and kind of see where they're getting involved, follow their friends, etc. And just let your curiosity lead you, because you will find very new, innovative work, and you'll find, people that are still following the formula or whatever. There's the whole gamut right in between. But just follow your intuition, and I feel like you can meet incredible people that would have been gatekept from you in Web 2 or IRL otherwise. And just ask them questions. You probably have an idea of what you want to put out there in the world, and there are these brilliant people who are willing to give you the time of day, and you can just ask them those questions. And who knows, maybe they'll just give you great advice and you can keep moving forward, or maybe they'll say, oh, actually, you know what, I'm putting together this exhibition, or I'm actually looking for lead vocals on, or et cetera, et cetera. Hey, can I remix this? Like, that kind of relationship building just happens so much more intentionally and frequently through blockchain than I've ever experienced.
I like two words, the philosophical tent poles of what you just said. Curiosity and curation are the two words that stand out. Curiosity
Yeah.
is it's such a powerful force. When everyone has stressors, right? But when curiosity takes the lead, magical things tend to happen at some point. And then also, you approached it from your side. You'd be looking to curate for that person. I think to spin it around on that person, like, you're able to curate your experience here. There is a lot going on. So I appreciate how you approach that.
Yeah, I think everything is multifaceted, and you take out what you put in and vice versa. And that's definitely true, because blockchain is so much about relationship building that I think you can't expect to just kind of extract value without giving a lot in return.
I'm going to cast a question back to you. So
Mhm.
that person that you just advised is now well on their way to curiosity and curation, an amazing experience. But to turn it back to you and your art, how do you distinguish between what you create and what you mint? right? What you make quote unquote official and actually put on blockchain. How do you distinguish between those two things?
I try to create accessibly. Just anytime that I have an idea or an inspiration, or someone comes to me with an idea or an inspiration, just kind of hop on that, play around. I'll naturally put more time and effort into pieces that I don't know, that I think are going somewhere, right? And at a certain point, you can kind of tell what was something that I just needed to play around with to kind of whet my appetite for a new song or a new project that will be worth minting or sharing with the public. And then yeah, sometimes I'm just like, okay, that was a song that brought me to this next song that's valid. And then sometimes they're like, oh my God, this is the real stuff, right? Like uh I just feel it immediately, kind of viscerally. There's a mood or there's something embodied about it, and I'm like, okay, this makes me really excited. It evokes something in me. So I imagine, even if it's not everyone in the whole world, I know that there will be at least a subset of people um, that feels inspired or drawn to this too, that finds this evocative. You can usually tell, like this is my favorite or this is my favorite of the month. Um, and then yeah, I feel like I kind of my favorite pieces just kind of rise to the top, and then it's kind of clear. I don't like to flood the market with a million things anyway. So it's kind of clear, like, okay, this is my one for the month or my one for these next couple months. And then kind of similarly for when I put things out on DSPs like Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, etc. I'm not gonna, I'll put a million things on SoundCloud. If you find my secret SoundCloud, you will find all my weird beats that I just don't think anyone else would appreciate listening to. But I won't put that on Spotify. And I feel like for blockchain, I'm even more selective. Um, just kind of this is my fresh new work that I feel is inspiring, it's innovative, and it's me putting my best foot forward, so that these thousand fans can be really, really just excited about what it is that I represent and what I will be, continuing to bring in the years forward and the decades to come.
That's interesting to go back to something you said there, the SoundCloud, Spotify, blockchain, almost like tiering system or filtration system.
That's how I use it. I have that little tiering system in my mind, but I know a lot of artists go about it very differently, and that's what's fun about this space. We're still vaguely early in terms of selling art on the blockchain, and people are really going about it in a lot of different ways. You can see their philosophies based off how they move, and I'm excited to just kind of see 5 years from now, looking back, what did different people's choices, how did that play out. But for me, that's just kind of what made most sense. I'm like, I want to make sure I'm retaining really, really high quality and high value with everything that I mint on blockchain, and then kind of similarly curated, but maybe have a few more on Spotify. And then SoundCloud's just like, yeah, do you want to see what I'm working on? This is me just figuring things out. 5 years later, my original seed will make sense, but I had to kind of like play around with it and then just throw it out into the world on SoundCloud first. Be like, okay, I'm done messing around with this song. It's not going anywhere, but you can see it if you want to know. Like that was my brain working on something that will make sense 3 years from now.
The Mari playground.
Truly, yeah.
It's so fun. I mean, it's fun. It's fun that that's out there, and it's fun that you treat it that way. And I imagine some people who sort of make it through your tiering system end up there and probably have an amazing time.
Yeah, I've had people tell me about my SoundCloud. I'm like, oh my God, you really found that? It's like at the bottom of my website, at the bottom of my link tree. And they're like, whoa, what was this? Like, are you ever gonna turn this into something? I'm like, I don't know, maybe one day.
You mentioned 5 years
Yeah.
out, right? And
Hmm.
being curious to see how some decisions work out 5 years from now, and keeping your eyes on things. What are a few of the things, and they could be ideas, concepts, people, whatever, that inspire you today?
Mm. I'll start with the concept and say, this is my big buzzword is sovereignty. I think that independent artists are often kind of pushed into the fringes or made to believe that we can't have both freedom and stability, mainly financial stability, but that we can't have both. And that's why I think bigger labels prey on independent artists by selling them a dream. And then in return, taking all of their masters or just being in control of who they write with, how they release, et cetera, et cetera. So I take inspiration from this idea that there is a possible world that exists, either in the near future or in the far future. Even if it's just a dream utopia in my head, there's a possible world that exists where every single individual can be sovereign. And it just seems so beautiful to me. Not only is that something that independent artists can take and run with, just inspiring us with all their dangerous and beautiful ideas. But everyone has that could have their own opinions, rather than just kind of like following groupthink. And we could, lovingly debate each other and change our minds and just experiment and explore and be curious. And I think there would be a lot more understanding or intention to understand and dialogue rather than division and violence and oppression, And yeah, so for me, being the human that I am and being the artist that I am, that's kind of the vision that I'm always working towards. And I speak on it a lot, I'm like all about optionality. Listen, I could really disagree with you, but as long as you're respectful, I will sit and have a dialogue and just, like cheers you over a drink because we're both human and life is complicated enough. Whatever makes it possible for you to live through it is beautiful for you, right? But just let me live my life in a way that's beautiful for me, as long as neither of us are, inflicting pain or control over others. And yeah, I kind of go into that with my art. There's a lot of cries for empowerment, or even some of my I have an almost like pop punk fusion track coming out soon. And that's like a little bit kind of like almost anti-pop, like a little bit facetious, kind of about how we all fall into these patterns or like pretend versions of ourselves just to fit in. Yeah, I'm always just kind of questioning what people posit as a given in society or given in culture, because we make it, right. The masses kind of create whatever the culture is. Sometimes it's top down, right? We have very, very powerful people persuading us that this is how life works, but I don't know, I believe in the power of humanity, and that's my main inspiration. I've seen people kind of go against the grain, both artists and also, philosophers and like civil rights leaders, etc. But I think they all had their own version of this this possible world that I have in my head, and I think we all do if we can like allow ourselves the time and the space to breathe a little bit and think outside of what people say is a given.
Optionality is probably one of my top 5 or 10 words in the English language.
Yes, let's
I,
go.
I mean, for real, it is. I think it's so powerful, and just hearing you walk through that, the most important thing to me, just my interpretation of what you just said, is that the majority of people likely won't take my opinion. The majority of people likely won't take that path. However, what's most important is not whether they do or don't, but the fact that the optionality exists, the fact that the door is open, that path is actually available, and that people like yourself are ensuring that, hey, if they're listening to you right now, it's like, yeah, it's possible. that door is open. It's more open than maybe you think it is. And
And,
it's up to you to sort of, maybe kick it the rest of the way open.
and the more of us who walk through that door, the more open it's going to be for the next generations.
Very true. Very true. How does that happen? So, I mean, that is an aspect of the future of art. I mean, art is exploring a lot of those different things and empowering that optionality. And so, stick with your utopia. Stick with what you want to see effectuated in the future. How does that happen from today? Like, if we're putting you at the top, and coming from Mari top down, like, you are able to walk us forward to your future utopia. How does that happen?
So I'm specifically looking at music and music for independent artists just because that's the life that I'm living. And so I can lead by example, right? And so for me, I'm pretty staunchly independent. I don't see myself signing with anyone unless it is for a short period of time and there's a very clearly negotiated contract where I retain um, power over my masters. And if I want to do a collaboration with someone that isn't involved in the project within this label, that I can be free to move however I may want. Um, at the end of the day, I'm in control of my own actions, right? That's why I stay independent. That's why I love blockchain, because I can, I can monetize my music in a way where I don't need to um, give away certain parts of my freedom. Um, I've been thinking kind of specifically in some of the potential pitfalls within the music industry that some parts of the blockchain are kind of um, revisiting in a way that I think is unhealthy. Just like the Spotify model that kind of brought us all down to a place where musicians are making pennies, fractions of a penny per stream. Um, and that leaves us with very little leveraging power to be able to choose other avenues other than just signing with a major label and giving away all of your power and just hoping that you can get some portion of the bag that they make off of you, right? So I see some platforms in Web3 starting to push for lower and lower mint prices. That just kind of reminds me of when Spotify just started dragging us down towards those pennies. And that to me just kind of looks like musicians in a certain extent being played to fit someone's Web3 version of a Web2 company. I look at visual arts in blockchain and they're not really being pressured within this bear market to be pushing their mint prices to like $1, right? Whereas I see that kind of happening culturally in music NFTs. And I just think that is another example of platforms and companies putting their own success over the health of individual and independent artists. So for me, when I see that, I just kind of try and make sure that there are other avenues, right? Optionality again, other avenues that show that there can be, you can make a different choice, right? And then if we have enough of us going in that direction, then I think we prove that music can be as successful as visual arts. And we don't need to just assume that Spotify is the only model that will work across all platforms within blockchain, in Web2 and IRL, et cetera. Like we have more power as a group of individuals than we think. So that's the direction that I'm going in, at least for now.
Well, in this example, you are leading all of us. So this is the direction we're all going in.
Oh, well, I love it. Thank you.
Talk about music a little bit more and think about something that comes out of your mind specifically as music first, and it becomes something that you want to distribute. What's your perfect world with the visual portion of that? Does it exist as music alone? Does it have a still image associated with it? Does it have a video of some sort associated with it? How do you think that piece through?
I like their, I mean, you could probably guess what I'm going to say, but I like there being options.
Figured
I
you might
think,
say that.
yeah, right. I think each, I'm saying this specifically with music because I think each has its own value. It's kind of cute having a little throwback to like CD or record days where you have the still image, and you can, or you just have the MP3 or WAV file and you can close your eyes and just kind of be immersed in this. If you want to open them, you see this one still image to kind of bring you a little bit into another dimension, but in general, you're just ensconced in the music. Um, on the other hand, understanding that this is digital art and we have digital technology at our disposal, it seems fun to be able to include moving images, whether that's a GIF or audiovisual piece like When She's Gone that you had seen earlier. Um, and of course, that one is a hybrid version where I experimented with a bunch of different mediums actually in one, just because it's possible, right? So why not play with them? I've found just kind of in experimenting with the different mediums that I've had at my disposal that different collectors respond differently to each. And some people are more drawn to kind of a traditional model of there's the still image cover art and there's the MP3, and they're thinking of it more as if like back in the day they bought like a signed CD or something. Um, and that's cute for them. And they make a playlist and they can kind of put it all on their playlist and put it on shuffle or whatever they may want. And then some people are kind of were brought to the blockchain through visual arts and they're intrigued by this audiovisual component. Some people are super into just having music videos like in the Web 2 realm, but just on the blockchain. Um, some people like having AI components in it. Or like a new project that I am working on is going to have a GIF component connected to music as well. So it blends this traditional music realm with having digital art technology that you can only really use on a screen. Like we couldn't have that if you just have a flat CD.
Yeah, it's interesting. I like the options too, and I'm just running through as we're talking and as I'm hearing you talk, I'm running through the examples of music that I've seen in the space, right, in the broader space, and
Mm-hmm.
just running through those examples of music paired with just the track, right,
Right.
that exists on its own and powerfully. The track plus a still, like I'm running through all of those examples that we've seen, and yeah, it's quite a wide range of possibilities.
And it feels just like visual arts. There's so many different mediums. People will say, I only collect landscape photography, or I only collect glitch art, or I only collect, a generative artist. Anyone could have their favorite styles that they're interested in. And I think certain artists will be drawn to only create in one style, certain collectors will be drawn to only collect in one style, and some people just are drawn to a lot of different things. So I kind of feel like keeping the options open is healthy for everyone. It's healthy for everyone.
And
um, yeah.
and healthy too to realize from the flip side, if you are someone who starts with the visual arts, I mean, same thing can be said there. There's plenty of cases of the visual art standing on its own. There's plenty of cases of having, auditory music overlaid there in some way, shape, or form.
Completely. And I've loved like I've had a couple collabs with visual artists when I was just working on music and was like, okay, great. I would love to have a cover art, but let's collab with some visual artists that I really respect in the space. Like my piece Wanna Know, I collabed with Jaw, who's an amazing visual artist, and he created this incredible AI cover art piece through Midjourney, and his prompt writing is amazing. And like how now I have this cover art for this piece even on Spotify, and it's through the blockchain that I was able to kind of realize that this would be fun. And yeah, I definitely challenge musicians to collaborate with visual artists and visual artists to collaborate with musicians and etc. We learn a lot from each other's mediums.
Mari, if you could collect yourself any item on the blockchain, any any medium, any literal item on the blockchain, what would you place in your own personal collection?
Oh wow, that is a great question. Um, oh my God, why do I not even know the answer? I feel like I would want a one of one just because I'm a fan of those in general. I'm I'm intrigued by being able to have something that's kind of like historical. Um, so maybe like one of the first music NFTs or one of the first. I mean, I know people were talking about the Lost Robbies for a little. I just think even the actual like visuals of them are kind of, they don't even mean that much to me because I don't know that much about AI art, but just the narrative behind them is so interesting. Like they were so before their time. And in fact, so much so that people just kind of lost those NFTs because they didn't think they should care about them. Um, I don't know. I feel like if I'm in the position where I could have any amount of ETH at my disposal and collect something, I'd want it to be something historical, and a one of one, just because I think those are so precious. One of ones are like my favorite.
All right, let me ask it differently, and let's go to, I think the visual arts probably plays a little bit better to this question, but you could also
Mhm,
get creative and go with the musician side as well.
mhm.
What's your preferred form of display? So it's kind of a little bit of a different question. You could be displaying your Lost Robbie or your NFT of historical provenance, right? But what would be your preferred form of dream display? Whether you're putting that in a physical space that you live in, whether you're formulating some sort of a monument or totem, but how
Mhm.
would you frame that?
I like the idea of having a screen in my home, or if I were to have some kind of gallery, having screens in a gallery. But what's so cool about that is if I have a screen in my home and then I like own part of a gallery in, I don't know, France, then I could be displaying it simultaneously in both screens at different parts of the world. And also if I want to, just while I'm in transit, pull it up on my cell phone and I have it there. Like I like knowing that I can experience it in physical space, but also so can other people globally. And I almost think that that concept is not even explored as much as it could be. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the next 5, 10 years with just digital display, and the fact that it, it's global in nature. It can exist in physical space, but it also doesn't have to exist in physical space. And as someone who loves hybrid models and fusion and everything, as you were kind of speaking about before, I love bridging together IRL space with digital space and blockchain kind of projects and art and technology. So I think it would be, I don't know, I just think that's a world that people haven't explored as much, and I think it would be fun to kind of bridge that a little bit more.
Is there any aspect of hardware associated with your production, associated with your display, associated with anything else within art or the future of art that you're excited to see get better? A piece of hardware that would effectively make your life as an artist better.
Well, I'm still pretty new to being a visual artist myself, so I probably won't weigh in on that necessarily. Although I do think that there's like a little bit of monopoly in terms of the digital display screens that I've seen at different galleries around. I would love to see more people innovating within that hardware direction. I think more innovation, more options is always great. In terms of music, I've been experimenting with AI and music just because I figure it is new, it's here to stay. So I might as well figure out what I like about it, what I don't, etc. Um, I was chatting with some coders, some developers that are kind of interested in coding AI. And I was asking them a question about why I haven't really seen that much iterative AI in music as much as I've seen in visual AI art. Like if you work on a prompt in Midjourney, you can give them a prompt, they give you some images, and you can tweak it. So you are basically in a dialogue with AI. And in music, it has been more just kind of you set certain parameters or maybe give it a reference, and then it spits out a response. And the best that I was able to do in trying to make that a dialogue was in the project When She's Gone, when I basically input stems that I had into Ava, a music AI software, and then based off of the stems and the parameters that I had set and that it generated, I would just basically remix and chop up those stems in my production. So it's a little bit of a clunky way to kind of do what I was trying to figure out. But this AI developer basically said that the reason why we haven't seen that much innovation in that direction in music is because it is a similar process in code as genetics is within AI. And so like each note and velocity and rhythm of every single stem. So drums, synth, bass, guitar, vocals, etc. Like it is so individualized and specific that it is basically akin to mapping genetics. And so, of course, when it's so complicated and vast to explore something like that, scientists are going to be putting money into, you know, experimenting and exploring genetics because that's just so important to help the health of our people, but also obviously there's funding in that, and that makes sense to me. But it was just interesting, kind of like, okay, so we have to wait for genetics in AI to advance before we can get a certain other evolution in music AI. But that's not even hardware. That was your question. Wow, I mean, for hardware, I in terms of music, I could imagine AI coming in and just helping a lot with certain mics, and like MIDI keyboards, etc., just to kind of um, make each process just simpler, faster, more streamlined. Um, I wouldn't even know necessarily how to conceive of that. I was just kind of like, it would be super fun to dialogue with an AI in my music as a producer. And I think that will become more valid in the next couple of years. Hardware, I don't know. I'm not a gear girl as much.
No, no,
I'm a software queen.
you know what? Software queen is just fine. You answered it. That was the spirit of the question anyway, and so I was riding with your answer. So let's stick with software queen.
Love it. I'll take it.
So Mari, give somebody who's listening the intro to yourself, your art. Where would you like them to explore?
Well, I'll start with a little bit of my background. I was born and raised in New York City. Um, both my parents are artists. My mom is a theater artist. My dad is a music artist, and vocal teacher. So I grew up with a lot of artists, experimental artists, independent artists, just around all the time, figuring out how to finesse a lifestyle based off of their income, as independent artists. And so I've been singing my whole life. The joke is basically within my family that I could sing before I could speak. And so song and voice is just my number one instrument, my calling, everything. Um, and from there, I've just been kind of experimenting with writing music, playing piano, ultimately working with different bands that came together, disbanded, etc. That's its own wave. And then I taught myself production on Ableton, started collaborating with other producers, also producing my own tracks, learning a little bit more about mixing, working now recently with some AI music components as well, just kind of teaching myself all the tools at hand. I moved to LA recently to understand a little bit more about music business, and how that also goes hand in hand with blockchain, and being an entrepreneur as an independent musician. Um, and basically, throughout this whole process of kind of learning how to be an artist and learning how to make the kind of art that I want to make, I keep just seeing the cultural implications of everything and realizing how much power we really do have as individuals and specifically groups of individuals in swaying the culture. So yeah, that I've kind of come to believe I'm gonna make my own music. I really love being playful, experimenting. I love fusion of sound and also a hybridization of mediums. So you'll see I'm a little bit allergic to genre. So if you check out my stuff on the blockchain or you check out my stuff on Spotify, especially my stuff on SoundCloud, as I kind of alluded to earlier, you will see a wide range of everything from jazz to R&B to alternative pop to experimental electronic, kind of a big range of genre as people define it. But people have told me that they do really feel there's a through line, even amidst all these different genres, and that is both my vocal voice, but also my writing voice. And even in my production, there's just certain elements that I'm always drawn to and that kind of come out of any genre. And I just write the song that's there, you know. I don't care what the genre is. I'm just like, oh, there's a song that needs to be born. Let me write it.
So what do we have to look forward to next? Earlier, you mentioned something along the pop punk lines, but what should people be looking out for?
Yeah, so I actually have two really big projects that are almost done. One is a band that I have with my sister. It's called Sybling, Sybling, and you can find us on all platforms at Sybling or Sybling Music, depending if you're looking on Spotify, blockchain, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. And we had an EP out a few years ago, but we are dropping our next EP on October 27th. We'll have two singles before then, one end of September, one beginning of October. And the first single, called Radio, actually already exists on the blockchain, was minted on Manifold. And so we have some very special early collectors that heard that song before anyone else gets to hear it.
Amazing.
So that is the Sibling EP. And then
Who's older, by the way?
I'm older, but
You-
you wouldn't know by meeting us. My
Nice.
sister is taller than me and just kind of like behaves in a more mature way. And I'm out here just running around being like, what's up, everybody? And then I have my solo project. And that is, I'm also working on, I was telling you, this kind of pop punk fusion track with R&B elements. It's going to be called Play Pretend. And I'm working on a very big drop with Transient actually in mid-September, and then it will be dropping on Spotify a few days after that. And I don't want to spoil too much of the magic that is going to be happening with Transient, but it is a pretty cool concept and project and something new for music NFTs and music on the blockchain. And it all starts with this one track, Play Pretend, that will also be on DSPs shortly after. And I'm really excited because one of my favorite new songs that I've written recently, and it kind of ties together all of my philosophies about the current society that we live in now. So with that little teaser.
And we love Transient, so I can't wait to see your philosophy and your music meet Transient innovation in some yet to be determined way. So let's keep our eyes out for that.
Yes, definitely. That will be coming September 12th.
Amazing. And who should be on the future of art? If you had to pick one person that you think would have a great interview here, who do you think that should be?
Oh my gosh, now I'm trying to like pick through all the people that I love that are interesting. Well, I'm after of the few names that I have floating around in my head, I know I just have to pick one. I might hit you back later offline with my barrage of other amazing people, just so you know
I
who
welcome
to
it.
check
I
out.
welcome it.
But I'm gonna, out of all the lovely people that I'm really inspired by, I'm gonna pick the person whose birthday just passed, because I feel like that is a good way to choose this and not not have to feel like I'm excluding other people. And that is Andre O'Shea, an incredible visual artist, also a music artist, and has been in the space for a while. Was there when I first joined, and has just been an incredible person and human and innovator and kind of experimenter within the space. So definitely check him out.
All right, Andre, I'm coming for you. We've crossed paths a few times before. I'm an Andre fan, so I think that would be
Yes. Okay, good.
it'd be a great interview to have. So good suggestion, and a belated happy birthday to Andre as well.
Yes, exactly.
Well, this was great. This conversation, I think it's going to be kicking around in my head for a little while. I think you're someone, just real time riffing with you has been a pleasure. But you're so sound in your philosophy. You're in the gray area, and you're experimenting, but you're also, again, you have such strong philosophical pillars, and that comes through. And I think it's a beautiful juxtaposition. So some of those ideas, and of course your fans to stands, and that we both love the word optionality. I had a really, really nice time with this. So thank you for spending the time.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited that I got to have this little chat with you, and I'm looking forward to more in the future.
Thank you for listening and for being part of the future of art. If you liked the episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite platform, and onward to the many conversations that await us. The Future of Art is produced by Artifex. Artifex, Artifex, was created to honor today's top digital fine artists in 3 dimensions. Each artist's one-of-one work of art becomes a collectible 3D sculpture and centerpiece of an immersive world built in Unreal Engine, the creation tool of Epic Games. Search Artifex Viewer on Apple and download our brand new free app to experience the sculptures in augmented reality. And visit artifex.art/unreal to literally step inside the art on your browser.